guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, welcome. My name is Ashley and I'm so happy you stopped by to check out today's video. Today's video is brought to you in partnership with The Good and the Beautiful, and I am excited to share today's video with you guys. It has been something I have been asked about a ton by you guys, and so I knew that this was a video I needed to make once we finally got around to finishing the course. So the video that I'm going to be bringing you guys today, judging by the title, is my recap of the Maturation in Sexual Reproduction unit study by The Good and the Beautiful. So I am gonna kind of give you guys the rundown of how it went for us, what my recommendations are, what I found to work really well, how we did it, and then you can take that all with a grain of salt. But I've been asked a lot what I thought about the course, what ages do I think it works for, and all of that. So now that we are done with it, I felt like I could give you guys some good feedback on what worked and what didn't, and just kind of give you guys a rundown if that is something that you are getting ready to teach your kids at home, or if it's something you know you've been needing to do but kind of putting off. So I'm here just to kind of share with you guys how it all went. So the first thing that I think is really important to mention is that we taught this course to my two oldest kids. They are right now, or when I started, 11 and 12, almost 12 and 13. And we decided to do it as a family, meaning my husband and I both present for all of the lessons, and my son and my daughter learning the information at the same time. We did that for a lot of reasons, but to basically give you guys a short summary, and this is what we chose to do. The Good and the Beautiful doesn't tell you to do it this way. It's just that we felt that this was best. When we're presenting information from a scientific standpoint, from a standpoint of that God created this, I feel like it's very important for young women and young men to know the role and function of each other's bodies. I think there's a lot of girls, sadly, I speak as a woman, who grow up and they might know about their own body, but they don't really understand the male side of things. And so we felt it was important that we presented the whole picture, because you can't really explain how babies come to be and how they're born without including all of the information. And so we decided it would be best to teach it both to them so that my daughter knows the function and all of the male specific information, and then my son also knows about women's reproductive systems and how that all works, and what things happen to women and girls. They're gonna be around each other, obviously, they're brother and sister, and I've got two more beneath them, and so they're going to see things that are going on, you know, trash cans or certain times of the month, and they're gonna notice these things. So we figured it was better if we just did it all together. I will recommend that. I think that it was really good to do it that way, and I will also recommend it, if you can possibly do it, to include your husband with you, or your wife, depending on who teaches your kids. So we just did it once a week. I would do one unit once a week, so we took it nice and slow. That way, well, we did it on Mondays because my husband is off on Mondays, and then I would set up my younger two kids downstairs with something educational to do or to watch. And I know people are gonna say, well, how can you know, like, if you wanna teach your older kids but you don't want your younger kids to have that information yet? Like, what did you do? And I obviously can't speak for your house, but I can just tell you what I told my kids. And what I told my older kids was that this is mature information. We are giving them this information because we feel that they're ready to handle it. And part of being mature comes with having responsibilities. So sometimes you're going to have information that isn't meant to be shared with younger kids. And this doesn't just apply to friends and friends' kids. This also applies to our brothers and sisters. So we made it very clear to them that we did not want them sharing any of the information that we were giving them, and that if we did discover that they had made a bad choice and delivered some of that information, that was going to fracture some trust that we have given them. Now both of my kids take that pretty seriously because they know that with trust comes privilege, and if trust is fractured, they know that that also comes with loss of privilege. And ultimately, both of my kids don't want to disappoint myself or my husband, and so we felt confident that letting them know that they were big kids and we didn't want them delivering information, that we as parents get to decide when my younger two are ready for that same conversation, just like we were doing with them. And so we did set up that framework. And so for us, that's how we did it. The younger two stayed downstairs. They asked, what are you guys doing up there? And we just said, we're doing some science lessons that are a little bit for older kids. So we'll be back, just stay downstairs. And that's kind of what we did. And it worked out pretty well. So like I said, we did 1 unit per week, and it is presented from a Christian godly standpoint. So it does cover abstaining until marriage. It does cover pornography and how it is wrong and harmful. It does cover it covers pretty much all of it. It does cover masturbation, and so it really goes into everything. Everything that you would think that you would cover in a unit like this. And sorry for my dog. So that is pretty much everything that is covered inside here. I will tell you guys, so there's the first lesson is male bodies and puberty. We had already covered that with our kids, so that was kind of a review. There were portions of the male body and puberty that this touched on that we hadn't touched on before, and so that was good for my son to have that information well before he's experiencing any of those things. Lesson 2 is female bodies and puberty. All of that had been covered with my oldest daughter because she's embarking on that, so we wanted to make sure that she had that. So we had already talked about that. Lesson 3 is menstruation, and she was well versed in a lot of that. My son, however, was not, and that lesson was comical at his reaction, I just have to say. I think I shared that. I think it was that lesson that he said that this course should be called the Book of Unwanted Truth, and I'll never forget that. That was just hilarious to me. Although I did, prior to doing each lesson each week, we did go over, this is not a joke, we're not making crude jokes, this is serious, this is scientific, this is the way God made us. So we did set that framework, but even still, kids are kids, and there were some giggles that came out. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. Lesson number 4 was sexual intercourse and living virtuously. This lesson rocked my kids' worlds. I can say without a shadow of a doubt, neither one of them had any idea that that is how babies have come to be, and it was a pretty pivotal moment in parenting when they both look at you, meaning myself and my husband, and realize that that's how they got here. That was like an eye-opening, like, you? And again, we tried to keep it mature and we tried to keep it as scientific as possible, but there were some laughs that also came out during that lesson. Lesson number 5 is the gestation and birth of a child. They both knew how pregnancy and childbirth work. They have asked how they were born, and I had C-sections, but they also, you know, so they already knew that. So this was really just connecting the dots for us. As you can see, we had had a lot of these conversations with our kids already, but there were missing pieces to the puzzle. And so now they have the whole puzzle, and hopefully things make more sense. There's parts to the lesson 4, sexual intercourse and living virtuously, that talk about love and lust, masturbation, and I just want to remind you guys that just because something has information in it, you are the best judge of what your kids need and what they're ready for. So I will say that there were parts of that that I left out because we're not there yet, and I didn't want to prematurely introduce things that might promote curiosity. So I just left that part out. So you're free to do that as well. Just keep that in mind. Lesson 6 was the dangers and destruction of pornography. Again, it guides you for what you should say. You can read it verbatim or you can paraphrase it how you see fit. I kind of did a little bit of both. My kids were asking like, well, what is that? What is there? And so I gave them, you know, a general idea of what it is, but there are horrific things out there. And I wasn't about to go into every detail of that. So I just said, you know, this is what it is. This is what you need to do if you ever see that. And this is why we have safety measures in place. And I talked about the addiction portion of it. And so they know about it, but again, you get to use your parental judgment. Lesson 7 was the harmful effects of pornography, and lesson number 8 was personal hygiene. Which we went over all of that personal hygiene stuff before. So that's how we did the unit here. Now, to give you guys my final review of this, this was a gift from God. It really was so well done. It guided the conversations that needed to happen. And sometimes when you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm about to tell my kids this, you know, you might be kind of fumbling over your words or what's the best way to say that, or, you know, that kind of thing. And so this really just gave me a good guide, and the way that they organized it made sense. So it went like, you wouldn't want to go straight for the whole talk before you know about all the parts, you know what I mean? So it made a lot of sense the way that they set it up, and I really liked it. So I would highly recommend it. I'm hanging on to it for the future with my younger two. We'll cross that when we get there, which will be hard to believe, but I know it'll happen before I can even blink. So I wanted to sit down and tell you guys that I highly recommend that course. Now people are gonna say, well, what ages? So I shared with you guys the ages that we did it with my kids, but ultimately I think there's a lot of factors that play into when you have these kinds of conversations with your kids, and only you know that. I didn't feel it was best for my younger two to be included on this information yet. You might view that differently, and that's totally okay. So I'm not going to make any recommendations on ages for your children. You know them best, and you know what they're exposed to and what they might be ready for. So you, you know, can make that choice. But this was what worked well for us. I'm glad that we were the ones to give them the information first. I'm glad that they have the facts. And at the end of it, we just told them that this is going to be an ongoing discussion as they grow and mature, and that if they ever have any questions or anything happens, that me or their dad are the place to come, that there's no embarrassment, and you know, that we will always give them the truth. I want them to know that, so that they're not ever tempted to ask a question to, you know, someone other than us. So that's the way we did it. I felt really good about it. It was a weight off of my shoulders. I needed to do it. I had been dreading doing it. There's a little bit of like a loss of innocence that comes with that. But what I noticed is that after the initial shock, they were like over it, and it was like not a whole thing again. So that was encouraging to my heart. So that is my review of the course, you guys. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on it. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I will see you guys in my next video really soon. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.